Hello students, welcome to class 11th session of English. In previous session we talk about, you might be knowing that we started with the chapter 5 of your snapshot, that is Mother's Day. And I hope you people have read the play given in your textbook. In the previous session we started with the play Mother's Day written by J.B. Priestley. And I hope you remember the main characters of this play were Mrs. Annie Pearson, mother; George Pearson, husband of Mrs. Annie Pearson; Doris Pearson, their daughter; Cyril Pearson, we talk about, he is the son; and the another character out from the family, that is the neighbor, Mrs. Fitzgerald. So these are the main characters of this story. The action takes place in the living room of the Pearsons' house in a London suburb. The time was present, and I hope you are able to recall that where we lived, that how both Doris and Cyril were astonished by the change in the personality of their mother, because up till now she was totally different. She was following all the instructions given by her children or by the husband to her. But now what was done? The neighbor, Mrs. Fitzgerald, what she did? She changed the personality, means the personality of Annie Pearson was changed with the personality of Mrs. Fitzgerald, who is one of the bold lady, strong enough as compared to Annie Pearson. So now open up your page number 41, each and everyone. We left here where Mrs. Pearson enters right carrying a bottle of stout beer and a half-filled glass. Cyril and Doris try to stop their coughing, means they were laughing and doing the giggling. And here Mrs. Pearson regards them with contempt, means she totally ignored them. Now Mrs. Pearson coldly: you two are always talking about being grown up. Why don't you both try for once to be your age? She moves to the settee and sits. Cyril: can't we laugh now? Mrs. Pearson: yes, it is funny. Go on, tell me, make me laugh. I could do it with it. Doris: you know you never understand our jokes, Mom. So here we'll see what was the reply of Mrs. Pearson. Basically the changed Mrs. Pearson we are going to mention here. I was yawning at your jokes before you were born, Doris. Doris, almost tearful again. You remember that again also? Because the way Mrs. Pearson behaved with her, she started crying. And again, second time. What's making you talk like this? What have we done? Mrs. Pearson promptly. Nothing, but come in, ask for something, go out again, then come back, when there is nowhere else to go. So here through her statement, what Mrs. Pearson explained, she mentioned that they haven't done much except bargaining in whenever they want and going out as per their convenience, means always she is mentioning that always she has been taken for granted. In between, all they do is make her work all the time, and when they have no other place to go, they come back home. So this is the time when, after changing her personality, Mrs. Pearson is able to speak up the reality. Cyril aggressively: look, if you won't get tea ready, then I will find something to eat myself. Here he is giving some sort of warning to her that if she is not going to bring tea for him, then he is going to move inside the kitchen and will find out something for himself. Mrs. Pearson: why not? Help yourself. So here we can see the way she is reacting now, as if she doesn't care at all. She takes a sip of stout. Cyril, turning on his way to the kitchen: mind you, I think it's a bit thick. I have been working all day. So both the children we can see here, they are showing to their mother that how much work they are doing, and after coming back from their work, if they have to do the work, it's really tedious, but they are not able to understand whatever the work being done by their mother, although she never get any kind of appreciation for that, or not even her work ever acknowledged. Doris, same here. Mrs. Pearson, in a very calm manner again, 8-hour day. Cyril, yes, 8-hour day, and don't forget it. Mrs. Pearson, I have done my 8 hours. So here Mrs. Pearson said that I have also completed my 8 hours, as if you have completed your work for 8 hours. Same, I have done. Cyril, that's different. Please underline it. So here you can see that most of the families we can see this kind of thing happen, and we are not able to acknowledge the work of mother, whatever the work being done by mother, as if we are going out, the children are moving out doing job and working somewhere, so they will consider it as work. But for the whole family, whatever the mother is doing, that will not be considered at all. In most of the families we have seen this kind of situation. So here through this play, the writer has tried to draw our attention to such kind of problem. Again, Doris, of course it is. Mrs. Pearson, again in a very calm manner, it was. Now it is not. 40 hours week for all now. Just watch it at the weekend when I have my 2 days off. So now she is giving them the warning, just you are going to have more at the weekends now, when I am going to take 2 days off. At this, Doris and Cyril, they exchange alarmed glances at each other. Then they stare at Mrs. Pearson, who returns their look in a very calm manner again. Cyril, must grab something to eat. Looks as if I will need to keep my strength up. Cyril exit to the kitchen. So now he is away from the scene. Doris, moving to the city anxiously, Mummy, you don't mean you are not going to do anything on Saturday and Sunday? So here she is just trying to clarify the things. Whatever being said by Mrs. Pearson, what is the actual meaning of that? Mrs. Pearson, early, in a very calm and I don't care manner, no, I wouldn't go that far. I might make a bit or two and do a bit of cooking as a favor, which means, of course, I will have to be asked very nicely and thanked for everything and generally made a fuss of. So she says that don't worry, little bit work I will do, but for that also you have to ask me very nicely, and whatever I am going to do that day on weekends you have to thank me. But any of you 40-hour a weekers who accept to be waited on hand and foot on Saturday and Sunday with no thanks for it are in for a nasty disappointment. Might go off for the weekend perhaps. So here we can see that she is showing her disappointment with the children, that how she feels when she is not being acknowledged, her work is not being acknowledged. Doris, aghast, means very shocked after getting the answer from her. Go off for the weekend means she was not able to believe her ear, what she heard just now from Mrs. Pearson. Mrs. Pearson, why not? I could do with a change. Stuck here day after day, week after week. If I don't need a change, who does? Doris, but where would you go? Who would you go with? Pearson, that's my business. You don't ask me where you should go and you should who you should go with, do you? Doris, that is different. So here Mrs. Pearson replies, the only difference is that I am a lot older and better able to look after myself now. So it's you who should do the asking. Doris, did you fall or hit yourself with something? Because still she is not able to understand that what actually happened to her mother, why she is behaving in this such a strange manner. Mrs. Pearson, very coldly, no, but I will hit you with something, girl, if you don't stop asking silly questions. Doris stares at her open mouth, ready to cry, because this kind of thing never happened with her earlier, and she was really shocked to get such kind of answers from her mother, because up till now only the children used to give the instructions and she used to follow all those instructions without saying anything, without asking anything in return. Doris, oh, this is awful. She begins to cry, not passionately. So little bit sobbing, she starts here. So when she starts crying, Mrs. Pearson asks her, stop blubbering, means stop behaving like a child. You are not a baby. If you are old enough to go out with Charlie Spence, you are old enough to behave properly. Now stop it. Now another character enters the play, and that is George Pearson, husband of Mrs. Pearson. Enters left. He is about 50, fundamentally decent, but solemn means underline the very dignified one. Self-important, pompous, preferably he should be a heavy, slow-moving type. He notices Doris' tears. George, hello, what is this? Can't be anything to cry about. Doris, through sobs, you will see. So now she is not telling anything and she is just waiting him to come across all the things she has just now experienced. Doris runs out left with a sob or two on the way. George stares after her a moment, then looks at Mrs. Pearson. George, did she say you will see? Mrs. Pearson, yes. George, what did she mean? Mrs. Pearson, better ask her. George looks slowly again at the door, then at Mrs. Pearson. Then he notices the stout that Mrs. Pearson raises for another sip. His eye almost bulge. Bulge here means, the phrase can be here, the eyes came out, means he got shocked here. Underline, because he never expected Mrs. Pearson to have all that. George, stout, Mrs. Pearson, yes. George, amazed, what are you drinking stout for, Mrs. Pearson? Because I fancied some. Fancied here means, so simply she said that I have a desire to have it right now. George, at this time of day? Mrs. Pearson, yes. What's wrong with it at this time of day? At this reply, George, bewildered, means very confused. Nothing, I suppose any, but I have never seen you do it before. Mrs. Pearson, well, you are seeing me now. George, with heavy disdain. Distaste here means with dislike, yes, and I don't like it. It doesn't look right. I am surprised at you, Mrs. Pearson. Well, that ought to be a nice change for you. And here we can see Mrs. Pearson not at all afraid, not even bother about how husband is going to react, the way she is behaving. George, what do you mean, Mrs. Pearson? It must be some time since you were surprised at me, George. George, I don't like surprises. I am all for a steady going on. You ought to know that by this time. By the way, I forgot to tell you, this morning I wouldn't want any tea. Special snooker match night at the club tonight, and a bit of supper going, so no tea. So here George mentioned that today he is not going to take the tea as he have to move to the club tonight, and there only he is going to have supper. Mrs. Pearson, that's all right, there isn't any, she replied. George, astonished, the shocked one, you mean you didn't get any ready? So here we can see that when the family members are doing any planning or something like that, they are not at all bothered to inform such kind of things to the mother, as we have already seen that they are taking her for granted. What if she could have prepared all the tea and all? So at the last moment when he has decided all the things, then he is telling that I am not going to take the tea. Although Mrs. Pearson replied that there isn't any, means she has not prepared anything. At this reply, George is very much shocked. Mrs. Pearson, yes, and a good thing too, as it's turned out. So she said, it's good that I have not prepared, as already you have to go to the club tonight. So here George aggrieved. Aggrieved here means feeling as if no importance given to him. That's all very well, but suppose I would wanted some. Mrs. Pearson, my goodness, listen to the men. Annoyed because I don't get tea for him that he doesn't even want. Even tried that at the club. So here she says, look at the men who don't want to take the tea, but then also he is getting angry on me. The reason being I have not prepared the same. George, tried what at the club? Mrs. Pearson, going up to the bar and telling them you don't want a glass of beer, but you are annoyed because they haven't already poured it out. Try that on them and see what you get. George, I don't know what you are talking about. So here also we can see he is not able to understand the way she is giving answers to George, and he is little bit confused that what actually going on. Mrs. Pearson, they would laugh at you even more than they do now. So here George indignantly means getting angry here. Laugh at me? They don't laugh at me. Mrs. Pearson, of course they do. You ought to have found that out by this time. Anybody else would have done. You are one of their standing jokes, famous. They call you Pompey Pearson because they think you are so slow and pompous. Pompous here means those who are affected by the self-importance. George, horrified, never. Mrs. Pearson, it's always beaten me why you should want to spend so much time at a place where they are always laughing at you behind your back and calling you names. Leaving your wife at home night after night instead of going out with her who doesn't make you like a fool. So she says that I always think about that, why you are going to that kind of place where the people are making fun of you instead of going out with your wife, you are going alone to such kind of parties and letting them make your fun. Cyril enters right with a glass of milk in one hand and a thick slice of cake in the other. George, almost dazed, turns to him appealingly. George to Cyril. Here, Cyril, you have been with me to the club once or twice. They don't laugh at me and call me Pompey Pearson. Do they? Cyril, embarrassed, hesitates angrily. Go on, tell me, do they? Cyril, again, is not able to speak of anything. Well, yes, Dad, I am afraid they do. So here Cyril revealed the truth about George and how the people making fun of him. George slowly looks from one to the other, staggered. He is not able to speak up. George, slowly. Well, I will be damned. George left slowly, almost as if somebody had hit him over the head. Cyril, after watching him go, turns indignantly to Mrs. Pearson. Cyril, now talking to Mrs. Pearson. Now you shouldn't have told him that, Mum. That's not fair. You have hurt his feelings, mine too. Mrs. Pearson, sometimes it does people good to have their feelings hurt. The truth ought not to hurt anybody for long. If your father did not go to the club so often, perhaps they would stop laughing at him. Cyril, gloomily, I doubt it. Gloomily means in a very doubtful manner, he says, I doubt it. Because he is also not convinced with the idea. Mrs. Pearson, severely, possibly you do, but what I doubt is whether your opinions worth having. What do you know? Nothing. You spend too much time and good money at greyhound races and dirt tracks and ice shows. Cyril. Cyril, now sulkily, in a very silent manner. Well, what if I do? I have got to enjoy myself somehow, haven't I, Mrs. Pearson? I wouldn't mind so much if you were really enjoying yourself. But are you? And where is it getting you? There is a sharp, hurried knocking heard of left. Cyril, might be for me, I will see. So somebody was there at the door and he said that, okay, let me see. And just after that, Cyril hurries out left. In a moment, he re-enters, closing the door behind him. It's that silly old bag from next door, Mrs. Fitzgerald. You don't want her here, do you, Mrs. Pearson? Sharply. Certainly I do. Ask her in. And don't call her a silly old bag either. She is a very nice woman, with a lot more sense than you will ever have. Cyril, exit left. Mrs. Pearson finishes her stout, smacking her lips. Cyril re-enters left, ushering in Mrs. Fitzgerald, who hesitates in the doorway. Because if we talk about the real Mrs. Fitzgerald, she is a very strong and the bold lady, but here she is having some hesitation. As we know, the personalities has been changed. She is behaving the way Mrs. Pearson used to. Come in, Mrs. Fitzgerald. Mrs. Fitzgerald, moving to left center anxiously. I just wondered if everything is alright. Cyril, again and bad tempered. No, it is not. Mrs. Pearson, sharply. Of course it is. You be quiet. Here Mrs. Pearson asked him to be quiet. Cyril, indignantly and loudly. Why should I be quiet? Mrs. Pearson, shouting, because I tell you to, you silly, spoiled young piken. Piken here means foolish. Mrs. Fitzgerald, protesting nervously. Oh no, surely. Mrs. Pearson, severely. Now, Mrs. Fitzgerald, just let me manage my family in my own way, please. Mrs. Fitzgerald, yes, but Cyril, sulky and glowering. In a very sad manner, he says, Mr. Cyril Pearson to you, please. Mrs. Fitzgerald. Cyril stalks off into the kitchen. So he moves to the kitchen then. On page number 47, Mrs. Fitzgerald moving to the settee, whispering, Oh dear, what's happening, Mrs. Pearson? Nothing much, just putting them in their places, that's all, doing what you ought to have done long since. Here, Mrs. Fitzgerald, is George home? She sits beside Mrs. Pearson on the settee. Mrs. Pearson, yes, I have been telling him what they think of him at the club. Mrs. Fitzgerald, well, they think a lot of him, don't they, Mrs. Pearson? No, they don't, and now he knows it. Mrs. Fitzgerald, very nervously, in a very nervous manner, oh dear, I wish you hadn't, Mrs. Fitzgerald. Then Mrs. Pearson replies, nonsense, doing them all a world of good, and they will be eating out of your hand soon, you will see. Mrs. Fitzgerald, I don't think I want them eating out of my hand. Mrs. Pearson, impatiently, well, whatever you want, they will be doing it, all three of them. Mark my words, Mrs. Pearson. So here we'll see George enters left gloomily. In a very depressed manner he is looking. He is unpleasantly surprised when he sees the visitor. He moves to the armchair left, sits down heavily and gloomily, lights his pipe. Then he looks from Mrs. Pearson to Mrs. Fitzgerald, who is regarding him anxiously. George, just looked in for a minute, I suppose. Mrs. Fitzgerald, who does not know what she is saying. Well, yes, I suppose so, George. George, aghast. George. Mrs. Fitzgerald, again in a very nervous manner, oh, I'm sorry, because she was not aware that what they were talking about, and she agreed to the thing. And when she realized, she said sorry. Mrs. Pearson, impatiently, what does it matter? Your name's George, isn't it? Who do you think you are? Duke of Edinburgh? George, angrily. What's he got to do with it? Just tell me that And isn't it bad enough without her calling me George? No tea? Pompey Pearson, and poor Doris has been crying her eyes out upstairs. Yes, crying her eyes out. So at this, Mrs. Fitzgerald wailing. Wailing means crying with grief. Oh dear, I ought to have known, George, staring at her annoyed. You ought to have known? Why ought you to have known? Nothing to do with you, Mrs. Fitzgerald. Look, we are at 6s and 7s here just now, so perhaps you will excuse us. So here George don't want any neighbor to be the part of their conversation and don't want to interfere in their personal matters. Mrs. Pearson, before Mrs. Fitzgerald can reply, I won't excuse you, George Pearson. Next time a friend and neighbor comes to see me, just say something when you see her. Good evening, or how do you do, or something, and don't just march in and sit down without a word. It's bad manners. It's bad manners. Mrs. Fitzgerald, again she is very nervous. No, it's all right. Mrs. Pearson, no, it is not all right. We will have some decent manners in this house, or I will know the reason why. Glaring at George. Well, George, intimidated. So here George is little bit frightened. Well, what? Mrs. Pearson, taunting him. Why don't you get off to your club? Special night tonight, isn't it? They will be waiting for you, wanting to have a good laugh. Go on then. Don't disappoint them, George bitterly. He got angry and said, That's right. Make me look silly in front of her now? Go on, don't mind me. 6s and 7s. Poor Doris been crying her eyes out, getting the neighbors in to see the fun, suddenly losing his temper, glaring at Mrs. Pearson and shouting, All right, let her hear it. What's the matter with you? Have you gone barmaid or what? Means have you gone crazy or what happened with you? Mrs. Pearson jumping up savagely just to protect. If you shout at me again like that, George Pearson, I will slap your big, fat, silly face. Mrs. Fitzgerald moaning, Oh, no, please. Mrs. Fitzgerald. Mrs. Pearson sits. George, staring at her, bewildered, again confused. Either I am off my chump or you two are. How do you mean? No, please. Mrs. Fitzgerald. Look, you are Mrs. Fitzgerald. So why are you telling yourself to stop when you are not doing anything? Tell her to stop, then there would be some sense in it. Staring at Mrs. Pearson. I think you must be Tiddly. Tiddly here means says, I think you are drunk. Mrs. Pearson staring up again. Say that again, George Pearson. George. All right. Little bit frightened again. Doris entered, left slowly, looking miserable. She is still wearing the wraps. Mrs. Pearson sits on the settee. Mrs. Fitzgerald. Hello, Doris dear. Doris, miserably. Hello, Mrs. Fitzgerald. I thought you were going out with Charlie Spence tonight. Annoyed. What's that to do with you? Stop that, Mrs. Pearson. Then here, Mrs. Fitzgerald getting nervous. No, it's all right. It isn't all right. I won't have a daughter of mine talking to anybody like that. Now answer Mrs. Fitzgerald properly, Doris, or go upstairs again. Doris looks wonderingly at her father, expecting that something he might be going to or might be taking her side. George in despair. Don't look at me. I give it up. I just give it up. So he says that don't look at me, don't stare at me. I am also not able to do anything. Mrs. Pearson fiercely. Well, answer her, Doris. I was going out with Charlie Spence tonight, but now I have called it off. Mrs. Fitzgerald. Oh, what a pity, dear. Why have you? Doris, with a flash of temper. Because if you must know, my mother's being going on at me making here means making me embarrassed, me feel miserable, and saying he's got buck teeth and is half-witted. Rather bolder to Mrs. Pearson. Oh, you shouldn't have said that. Mrs. Pearson. Mrs. Fitzgerald, I will manage my family. You manage yours. George grimly. ticking her off now. Are you Annie? Mrs. Pearson, even more grimly. They are waiting for you at the club, George. Don't forget. And don't you start crying again, Doris. After that, Mrs. Fitzgerald, getting up with sudden decision, that's enough, quite enough. George and Doris stares at her, bewildered. Means they are not able to understand what's going on here. To George and Doris, now listen, you two, I want to have a private little talk with Mrs. Fitz. She corrects herself hastily. With Mrs. Pearson, so I will be obliged if you will leave us alone for a minute. I will let you know when we have finished. Go on, please. I promise you that you won't regret it. There is something here that only I can deal with. George, rising. I'm glad somebody can, because I can't. Come on, Doris. Now both left. As they go, Mrs. Fitzgerald moves to left of the small table and sits. She eagerly beckons Mrs. Pearson to do the same thing. Mrs. Fitzgerald, the personality we are talking about. Mrs. Fitzgerald, we must change back now. We really must. Mrs. Pearson, rising. Why? Mrs. Fitzgerald, because this has gone far enough. I can see they are all miserable and I can't bear it. Mrs. Pearson, a bit more of the same would do them good, making a great difference already. She moves to right of the table and sits. No, I can't stand any more of it. I really can't. We must change back. Hurry up, please, Mrs. Fitzgerald. Well, if you insist. Yes, I do. Please, please. She stretches her hands across the table eagerly. Mrs. Pearson takes them. Mrs. Pearson, quiet now. Relax. Mrs. Pearson and Mrs. Fitzgerald stares at each other, muttering exactly as they did before when they exchanged their personalities. They carry out the same actions as they did earlier. Mrs. Fitzgerald, well, I enjoyed that. Mrs. Pearson, I didn't. Mrs. Fitzgerald, well, you ought to have done. Now listen. Mrs. Pearson, don't go soft on them again, else it will all have been wasted. I will try not to, Mrs. Fitzgerald. They have not had as long as I had. I would like to have given them another hour or two. Rough treatment might have made it certain. So she suggested her, don't react in the way you used to earlier. I'm sure they will do better now, though I don't know how I'm going to explain. Don't you start any explaining or apologizing, or you are done for. With the spirit, it's all right for you, Mrs. Fitzgerald. After all, they aren't your husband and children. In a very impressive manner. Now you listen to me. You admitted yourself you were spoiling them and they didn't appreciate you. Any apologies, any explanation, and you will be straight back where you were. I am warning you, dear, just give them a look, a tone of voice now and again to suggest you might be tough with them if you wanted to be, and it ought to work. Anyhow, we can test it. She asked, how? Well, what is it you would like them to do they don't do? Stop at home for once. Yes, and give me a hand with supper. Anything you would like them to do that you enjoy whether they do or not. Here, Mrs. Pearson hesitating a little bit. Well, yes, I like a nice game of rummy, but of course, I hardly ever have one, except at Christmas. Mrs. Fitzgerald getting up, that will do then. She moves towards the door left, then turns. But remember, keep firm on your own, you have had it. She opens the door, calling, her, you can come in now, coming away from the door and moving right slightly, quietly. But remember a firm hand. George, Doris and Cyril file in through the doorway, looking apprehensively at Mrs. Pearson. I'm just off to let you enjoy yourself. The family looks anxiously at Mrs. Pearson, who smiles, much relieved. They smile back at her. Doris, yes, mother. Mrs. Pearson, seeing that you don't want to go out, I tell you what I thought we would do, giving a final warning. Remember. Mrs. Pearson nodding, then looking sharply at the family. No objections, I hope. George, no, mother, whatever you say. Mrs. Pearson smiling. I thought we would have a nice family game of rummy, and then you children could get the supper ready while I have a talk with your father. George firmly. Suits me. He looks challengingly at the children. What about you two? Cyril, yes, that's all right. Doris, well, what? Speak up. Doris, oh, I think it would be lovely. Mrs. Pearson, goodbye. Mrs. Fitzgerald, come again soon. Mrs. Fitzgerald, yes, dear. Night all. Have a nice time. Mrs. Fitzgerald exit left and the family cluster round mother as the curtain falls. So this was the story of this play, where at the end ultimately the family members, if we talk about husband and the children, they were able to realize the importance of mother, although because of the fear, the anger she showed to them or whatever, but at least they were able to realize her importance. And sometimes this is the reality of present time also, that many of us, we are not appreciating our mother, we are taking them for granted, and that attitude must be changed. So in next session we are going to do the discussion over this play only, and by the time what you have to do, you all have to do the reading of this play. Is it clear? Thank you everyone.